Governor Cuomo has laid out his plans for the first 100 days of his third term. Fixing the subway and legalizing recreational marijuana will be among his top priorities, but how much will actually get done? I'm joined now by David Birdsell, who is the Dean of the Marxe School of Public and International Affairs at Baruch College. And we all watched that announcement yesterday. Very ambitious agenda on the governor's part. How much do you think is actually feasible?
Well, it is very ambitious, and he actually contextualized it in an even more ambitious framework. He started talking about FDR, the New Deal. Yeah. I mean, really tried to make this a big push, and you have to wonder about some national ambitions there. But I think a lot of this he can get done. One of the big headlines has been legalized marijuana. Right now, about 63% of New Yorkers would like to see that happen. With a Democratic Senate, I think the odds are pretty good that this actually passes. That becomes an important revenue source for some of his other agenda items.
And how difficult do you think the process would be to actually legalize marijuana here in New York State? What would that look like?
Well, there's a lot that has to happen. And if we take alcohol as an analogy, you have to license dealers, you have to create distribution networks, you have to create a quality assurance program, and then, of course, you have to create a taxation regime. And one of the reasons he wants to do this is to generate revenue for the state. It's legal in Vermont, it's legal in Massachusetts, Maine just legalized it. Most states that do this, it's a year or 2 years out from actually happening. So there's a lot of logistics that you need to pay attention to.
And one thing that, you know, it's important to point out, as recently as 2 years ago, the governor was opposed to this. So why did he change his mind?
Well, a couple of things. I think that the national climate politically is changing. With more states legalizing it, it's very popular in the Democratic Party. This seems like a good thing to do. It also resonates with a number of equity issues, particularly racial equity in law enforcement, because, of course, the vast majority of people who go to jail for marijuana crimes have been people of color, whereas, of course, the vast majority of users are actually white. So if you decriminalize and ultimately legalize the drug, you actually make a major change in the justice system. That also has financial implications, but it has large equity implications that, just if you were thinking about running a national campaign, really resonate with this Democratic base today.
All right, interesting to see how that will pan out. Now, moving along to the MTA, you know, the big question that everybody's been dealing with is how to fund it, and the governor has been throwing out congestion pricing as a way to tackle that. What are the chances of it really happening?
I think this is much harder politically than legalizing marijuana. There are so many legislators who represent districts where people drive into Manhattan, and they hate this idea. They've hated it within the city. They hate it statewide. It could happen. The governor is going to have to pull out all the stops. There's going to be some horse trading that goes on. Most policy analysts who look at it think this is generally a good idea. You actually disincentivize driving into Manhattan, good thing. You improve pollution rates, good thing. You generate public dollars to invest in things like the MTA, good thing, but people hate it. So whether this actually gets through, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, a lot of drivers not too happy about that proposal. Are there any other options to fund the MTA?
Well, it's all taxation, right? And you've got to think about taxes in the form of income tax, various kinds of commutation taxes, or you have to raise rates for people who actually ride the subways or ride buses in the city. And it's probably going to be a combination of all of the above, because the amount of investment that we need, billions and billions and billions of dollars, and right now that money has been diverted for so long. That's one of the things the governor really wants to patch up before he thinks about national office.
Okay, and another point that he mentioned, another proposal, is voting reform that he talked about yesterday. What changes can New Yorkers expect to see if that comes to fruition?
Well, there are so many. The signature issue yesterday was to talk about making Election Day a state holiday, so that people would actually not be at work. It would make it much easier for working people. And I'm thinking particularly of people who hold not just one, but two, sometimes three jobs, all low-income jobs, low-wage jobs. Those folks would be able to go to the polls. It would make it much easier, and ideally then that would increase turnout on Election Day. Turnout in New York is catastrophically low. It picked up in 2018. We're all happy about that, but it went from 11% to 22%. 42%. In the primary cycle, we'd like to see that get much closer to 50 and above, and that's what the governor is trying to accomplish here.
Well, the governor has been asked many times about his national ambitions, possibly a presidential run. What do you think? What do you think the truth of this is? What do you think we'll see down the road?
Well, the governor said that he's not going to run, that he's going to serve out his term, and I think that he will join a long, long list of politicians who have made exactly that pledge and then decided to go where the lights are brightest, and in this case, that means a presidential campaign for 2020.
All right. Well, we will see David Birdsell from Baruch College. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Pleasure to be here.